you're a collector who just got back into sports cars, it's a diverse, confusing, ever-changing landscape. My goal is to give you every piece of information I believe was really relevant to me when it comes to collecting. Basically get you caught up so you can start collecting what you want. You can make smart decisions in terms of long-term players, things you might want to look out for in the changing market of sports cars. My lane is football, very specifically football. If you know me, you know this channel, you know I don't really rip anything else outside of football because that's what I care about, that's what I'm passionate about. So most of this information will be tailored a little bit towards the football markets, but I do believe that it's applicable across all sports, across all collecting, some general information to just kind of help you find your way. Here's what I'm going to break down for you guys. Retail and hobby wax, the difference between the two, what people mean when they throw those terms around, hit potentials out of both of those, where you can find wax, stuff like that in our first video. Also in this series, we're going to talk about things like what to do at card shows. It's your first time. How do you talk to dealers? You're going to set up at a card show. What's an easy way to make sure that you can get some of your cards moved off the table? Collectors' best practices. That's something that a lot of people don't talk about. It's something like, hey, I want to know the unwritten rules of the road, things that people do that are kind of not spoken, things along those lines. And today in part one, we're going to get you guys into wax. Varying levels of wax, hits, retail, hobby, all of the above. Here we go, let's get into it. Now, every sport has varying levels of wax. You've really got retail and you've got hobby. Retail just means it's a box that you can go to Walmart, you can go to Target. You yourself can go and buy that box ranging between $30 and $60. We're talking fat packs, value packs also in that category, retail packs, basically anything less than 65 bucks that you can find in a retail store, that is retail wax. Hobby wax, on the other hand, is going to be more expensive boxes, some guaranteed autographs, and I say guaranteed because sometimes you don't get the autographs that are semi-guaranteed by Panini. But hobby wax typically bought from your local card shop, a hobby store, a card show, and that wax tends to be anywhere from $250 to thousands of dollars, containing higher yield returns on the cards in the boxes, but also obviously like way more expensive and not as accessible to the everyday collector. In your retail stores, you've probably seen things like blaster boxes, mega boxes. You may have also seen boxed sets. It's a long rectangular prism box. I know Don Russ is already out for this year for football. What's in the box set? Dude, it is 400 cards or however many cards are in the set of the base cards in that set. There's no hit chase. There's no potential. It's literally for collectors, kind of like in the old days when we used to build an entire set. You can buy the entire set in one fell swoop in a box, but there's nothing you're going to get in that box that you don't already know is in the box, which means it's not really a chase product when it comes to boxed sets. You've probably seen multiple versions of retail boxes, right? In 2022, Select was released in Walmart and Target, and both of those entities had an exclusive version of retail wax available to them. They came in the form of different colored boxes. There may be a small price difference between the two on the retail websites, like $5 to $10, but ultimately the boxes are exactly the same except for the colors of the cards that are on the inserts and parallels inside the boxes. Some examples right here of checklists that are the exact same across multiple retail brands except for the color of the inserts. So you don't have an increased chance of hitting one big hit out of one of these as opposed to the other. You're really just looking for different colors of inserts in these particular boxes. The biggest question, what makes certain colors of inserts or parallels more valuable than others? The answer is just availability, right? Let's take a look at specifically this Prism Mega Box that was hobby exclusive, meaning this did not get distributed to your retail stores. This was sent out to your local hobby stores, therefore increasing the price a little bit as well. These boxes right now going for like $100, $110. But the contents of the box are the exact same, potentially, as the contents of another retail box at $60. The only difference is the color of the parallels. The hobby exclusive boxes have purple parallels, and because hobby stores got these and you had to go to a hobby store to get one of these or order it online, you couldn't just stumble onto it in Walmart. That means that inherently the value of those parallels went up over time because they're a little bit less available to the general public, and you kind of had to seek them out if you really wanted to find them in the retail ecosystem. They are retail boxes in the sense that they don't have any guaranteed autographs, but they were only sold at hobby stores, and you'll continue to see products that are rolled out like that from the distributors moving forward. So keep an eye out on mega boxes at Target, Walmart, Meijer, and at your local hobby store. Now, hobby, more expensive, oftentimes has more guaranteed autographs, hits, so on and so forth. Retail often doesn't have any guaranteed autographs, guaranteed memorabilia, guaranteed case hits, anything like that, which is why hobby inherently is more expensive, more than just the valuation of what the autos could potentially be, but because in some hobby products, you have the chance to hit a card that you cannot hit in retail. Exhibit A, Color Blast from Prizm. Only available in the hobby. You can rip as many Prizm retail blaster and mega boxes as you want. You will never find a Color Blast in those boxes. That means that if you're looking for Prizm, hunting for that big hit, really the only hits you can pull out of Prizm retail are going to be silver Prizm, colored Prizms, and inserts. That's it. You buy a hobby box, you have 2 autographs that you're expecting to come out of it. That's awesome. But you're still taking a risk that those 2 autographs are for players that are completely meaningless in the grand scheme of what you're looking for in the market to get your value back on the hobby box. That brings me to another point I want to make sure I mention here. In general, something I always tell people is a card is only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And that goes for anything in the general ecosystem. Stay up to date with the rookies of this year's class. Figure out why certain teams are priced the way they are in breaks. It's likely because the yield potential for those teams is higher, given that the players that are coming out of those boxes are maybe more socially or competitively relevant right now. Now, let's jump into retail products that have hobby versions of the product, but still offer something on the retail level in terms of case hit, right? We're talking about maximizing your ROI if you're gonna buy a box at your Walmart. Don't buy a box that has a no ceiling that you can hit, right? If you're hunting for a CJ Silver, that's one thing. But if you're really looking for your maximized ROI, you wanna look for products in the retail space that still have case hit potential. Let's start with one of my least favorites, Absolute. Absolute is notorious for having a majority of its cards be completely worthless, but in retail and in hobby, you have the chance to hit a Kaboom or an Explosive, which are short printed case hit cards. You can see them right here. These things are absolutely sexy, but you really gotta dig. I mean, I ripped a ton of Absolute and still have not hit one of these myself. This is the only card really worth anything out of the entire set. So everything else that you rip, if you don't hit one of these, you're gonna throw away. That's a big chase for a big card, but a lot of miscellaneous non-value kind of push through in the middle of that process. If you're ripping, throwing everything away, looking for that Absolute or Kaboom, or that Explosive or Kaboom, not going to make much money back, especially if you never actually hit one. And if you do hit one and it's a Nick Chubb or Nick Bosa, right, you're kind of wishing that you wouldn't have spent as much money trying to look for that one specific card. Moving on to Prizm. Prizm is like the football world's baby girl. I mean, the classic design is well recognized. It features a wide variety of colored parallels and inserts. The biggest caveat I have with Prizm, and I've mentioned it a few times, is there is no case hit in retail, right? Rip as many Prizm retail products as you want. You'll never find a Color Blast. You'll never find a manga. It's not going to happen for you. And that means that retail Prizm inherently carries less ceiling potential, albeit you may have a stronger baseline with some of the cards you get for rookie players and how those hold value over time. But your maximum chase is really just tied to what the player has done, right? CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, quarterbacks, Will Levis, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jordan Addison, silver rookie Prizm. That's your chase. That's going to be your ultimate payoff. PSA 10 is going to be your maximized ROI. Moving on to another product, let's talk about Mosaic. Mosaic is one of my favorite retail products out in the space because you have a massive amount of short print case hit potential on the retail side. Hobby box is more expensive, but you don't really get any ROI off the hobby box, which means the retail is a better buy for most investors and most hobby collectors than the hobby box is, right? What I mean by that is this. In the retail for Mosaic, you have the potential of pulling a Genesis, a Honeycomb. You have the potential of pulling a Kaleidoscopic, Stained Glass, Razzle Dazzle, Micro Mosaic. That's 6 short print or case hit styled cards. That means that you could literally be ripping a fat pack, and I've done this, and pull a $250, $300 card out of a fat pack. You're not going to do that out of even a Prizm Mega Box unless you're pulling a CJ Silver. So keep that in mind as you move forward looking at stuff that's come out this year, stuff that's coming out next year. Maximize your retail purchases to give you the best ROI. Those are 3 of my favorite products that have both retail and hobby versions. And I think that for all of them, there's a case for maybe buying a little bit more hobby into breaks, buying it yourself, buying into retail. But I think what I'm trying to get across here is that knowing the checklist of what you're purchasing warrants something when it comes to the value you can get back from your product. I hope you guys learned something new today. I hope this video wasn't too boring for you. Trying to bring some educational information to the space. My break room is always like a first stop for people who are coming into this world, and I love it. Stay tuned for the second part in this series. We're going to talk a little bit more about going to card shows, how to handle dealer conversations, how to get the best bang for your buck on your cards, comps, things along those lines. Stay tuned for for more of The Lab.